Hello everyone, this is Chris Reed here from Enable Technologies. I'm the product manager for N-Central, and in today's webinar, I'm going to be going over what's new in N-Central 8.0. More specifically, I'm going to spend a little bit of time reviewing what Enable has been doing over the past 12 months, what our goals are for this year, what the goals were for N-Central 8.0, and then I'll spend the majority of my time actually in N-Central 8 showing you the new features, going over some of the reasons why we did them, how we did them, and what the benefits of those features are to you. Towards the end of the call, there will be time for a Q&A session, so if you've got questions, please ask them through the GoToWebinar session or wait until the Q&A session and I'll open the lines at that point, but just save your questions until then. So let's go ahead and get started. Enable has traditionally been a company that produces a new version of N-Central once every 9 to 12 months, and that has a couple of issues with it. From your point of view as one of our customers, that means that if you make a request of us, we don't get around to implementing it for 9 to 12 months, if not longer. That's a long time to wait for you to get a feature that you've been looking for. From our point of view, it's a long time as well, because if we need to respond to a change in the landscape, if we need to respond to a competitive threat that has come up, well, we're front-loaded. We're already full out scheduled for the next 9 to 12 months. That's not very good. It doesn't make us very agile. So what we started to do sort of about 9 months ago was to start producing quarterly releases of N-Central. So every 3 months we put out a new version of N-Central. It has two benefits really. One is that it allows us to respond very quickly to competitive issues, to new features that are needed. It allows us to add new features that you want much more quickly than before. It really improves the relationship between Enable as a software company and our market. N-Central 7.1, which was released last fall, was the first of these quarterly releases. And because the releases are smaller, because they're only produced once every 3 months, they tend to have a bit of a theme. The theme in N-Central 7.1 was really around patch management. We completely redesigned how we interface with WSUS, how we interface with the patch agent on Windows devices. We also spent a lot of time around backup monitoring. So we added support for Asigra and Xylocore backups. We completely redesigned the discovery mechanism for backup exec. N-Central 7.2, which was released just in January, introduced the discovery of Microsoft license keys for Windows, for Office, for Exchange, and SQL, and so on. And it also introduced really improved integration with PSA vendors like Autotask, so the ability to automatically create tickets, to automatically close tickets, to add notes to devices in N-Central. Those were all added in N-Central 7.2. As well, though, we wanted to be more than just a company that sells you N-Central. We wanted to be a company that sells you different products that help you go about your day-to-day business as an MSP or as an IT department. So we released Backup Manager as a standalone product, Audit Manager, and NetFlow Manager to help you and to give you additional products that you can use in your MSP business. Our goals for 2011 are pretty clear, actually. That the sort of overarching one is, well, we want to make our customers the most successful MSPs in the world. We want to give you the training, the software, the tools you need to become as successful as possible as a managed service provider. What that comes down to this year is that we really want to more closely align our product offerings with what you guys do on a day-to-day basis with your clients. So as an example, you can see in point number 1, you assess a new client's network. You onboard them once they stop being a prospect and start becoming a customer. You monitor and manage their network. You mitigate risks for them. You protect them from spam and viruses. You optimize their network by making recommendations. You back up their data, and you provide them with reports so that they have some sort of visibility as to what's going on. N-Central, on its own, has typically been a very good tool when it comes to assessing a network. It's been a very good tool when it comes to monitoring a network and protecting it. It hasn't been a very good tool though when it comes to onboarding and when it comes to managing a network. And so one of the things that we wanted to do with N-Central 8, one of the goals of this release, was to really give you guys a lot more automation, a lot more power when it came to onboarding your customers and when it comes to managing them, doing maintenance routines. Another goal for this year is that we really want to push Essentials nodes. We want to make sure that they are everywhere, that you guys have the right mix of features within Essentials nodes, that there's a lot of reason for you to push it out. We feel that if you have Essentials nodes on every device that your customers have, regardless of if they're a managed customer or not, that's beneficial to you. You'll have basic monitoring, basic remote control, and really in-depth asset data of all your clients' devices, which gives you more information to mine to help them out. So one of the things you'll see, not so much with N-Central 8.0, but farther on down the road, is us starting to really push Essentials to change what features are added to them. So figuring out what the roadblocks are right now, figuring out what functionality we need to add to Essentials to make them more appealing to you, and also taking care of any sort of management issues around handling thousands of Essentials devices out in the field. The other goal for 2011 is to continue to make Essential the single pane of glass that you use to manage all your customers. What this really means is that we realize that the more features and functionality that are integrated into Essential, the more efficient you are, the more profitable your business is. What that comes down to in 2011 is that we want to integrate CA's D2D product into Essential so that you can deploy it, manage it, and monitor it centrally from Essential without having to open up a second console, without having to first remote into a client site and accessing the UI itself. You'll be able to do it all right from Essential. So let's dive right into Essential 8. As I mentioned earlier, this is really where I want to spend the majority of my time. This is going to be a fairly technical webinar. We're going to go into quite a lot of detail around what the new features are and what they look like. Before I begin, about 18 months or so ago, we hired an outside usability expertise company to come in and take a look at Essential, the older versions of Essential, and figure out what we needed to do from a UI point of view to make the product easier to use and more efficient to use. And the way that they did that was that they hired a number of IT-savvy people who were not familiar with Essential. They walked them through everything from signing up on the Enable Resource Center site to getting their trial account to actually performing an evaluation of Essential. And they marked where those people succeeded and where they failed. They also sent out a massive survey to all of our existing partners at the time, asking them to group together all of Essential's different functionality. So adding a customer, adding a probe, doing a discovery job, all of those different items they asked them to group them together and then to name those groups so that we could, from looking at you guys as experienced users of Essential and as experienced MSPs, we could understand how you wanted the product to actually be organized and laid out. The usability company came back with a recommendations document for us, and we started implementing a lot of that functionality as quickly as possible. The reality was, though, that we needed to essentially redesign the entire Essential user interface to accomplish some of the larger problem areas that they had noted. So one of the goals of Essential 8 was to really give you guys a brand new, up-to-date, much more user-friendly user interface so that you can be more efficient and you can use it a lot easier. Let's go ahead and take a look. What you'll find is that all of the old sort of navigational structures, the setup menu, the report menu, the help menu at the top, the wizard access panel down in the bottom left-hand corner of the user interface, those are all gone. The customer tree where you could expand your customers and then see your dashboards below, those are gone as well. Everything has been collapsed into the left-hand side of the Essential user interface. If you want to change from the service organization level to the customer level, you do so with this drop-down menu. You can change from the service organization level where I am right now down to the customer level. And you'll notice that when I do so, the box around that drop-down menu changes color as well. It changes from orange at the service organization level to green at the customer level. And if I was logged in as the product admin, it would change to maroon for the system level. It gives you a quick and easy way to tell what level you're at just by glancing at the top left-hand corner. You don't really need to read too closely. You can just look for the color. You can also type in this drop-down menu. So if I wanted to look for customers who start with the word demo, I can quickly do so, and the drop-down is filtered then to show me just the customers that have that text in them. Now, all the different actions you can perform in Essential, as I mentioned earlier, the all devices view, adding customers, doing a discovery job, those have all been grouped into menus in the left-hand side. These menus are expandable and collapsible, and by default there are 3 of them that are expanded whenever you log into the user interface. The Views menu contains the most commonly used screens in Essential. So the Active Issues view, which is where you can go to see all of the issues that Essential has detected across all your clients' sites, so all the things you need to be aware of that you need to take care of. The All Devices view, which is where you can go to add, modify, or delete devices. The Job Status dashboard, which lets you see the status of any tasks Essential is performing for you, doing discovery jobs, running scripts, pushing out third-party software. And the Help Desk node, which is a feature in Essential that lets you remotely control a machine using VNC, even though that machine is not actually under management by Essential. The Dashboards menu gives you access to all of Essential's dashboards, and dashboards are essentially unchanged in Essential 8. They look roughly the same, except that they're now available for you at the service organization and system levels. So you can actually create cross-customer dashboards now. If you are, for example, a technician who specializes only in backup or only in Exchange or SQL, you could create cross-customer dashboards that look for all of your Exchange servers or all of your backup servers so that all you see are the devices that you're responsible for managing. The final menu that is expanded by default is the Actions menu. And this contains a list of shortcuts to all the commonly used features in N-central. So importing devices, adding a customer, approving or declining patches, running a script, doing a discovery job, all the top 10 or 12 items that you constantly click on in N-central, they're all just one click away now in that Actions menu. Now, below the Actions menu and the Dashboards menu and the View menu are the rest of N-central's functionality. So the Reports menu gives you access to N-central's powerful reporting capabilities. My Links gives you the ability to create external links to external websites or resources, like your intranet site or our anti-spam product or eventid.net or some other site that you need to access to help you troubleshoot issues. What was in the Setup menu in older versions of N-central has been broken out into two separate menus, the Configuration menu and the Administration menu. The Configuration menu contains all the items that directly affect your customers' devices, so the end devices that N-central is monitoring. So doing things like configuring endpoint security, how monitoring is set up, how patch management is done, and how scripts and software packages are pushed. Those are all present in the Configuration menu. The Administration menu, on the other hand, controls all the properties related to administering N-central itself. So creating N-central user accounts, enabling or disabling N-central services, and controlling system-wide defaults are all available in the Administration menu. The Help menu is very useful as well. It contains a link to the Getting Started wizard, so if you need to train a new technician, for example, who's just come on board with how to use N-central, he can get started with the Getting Started wizard to understand how it works and how to use it. You get access to the What's New page, so if you want to see what are the new features and functionality in N-central, we have a nice page that lists what they are. You can see what version of N-central you're running, and you can also access N-central's online help. The other navigational item to bring to your attention in this webinar is that up in the top right-hand corner, we now display the system time, the time according to N-central. This is useful to know when you're comparing when N-central last scanned a service versus what time it currently thinks it is. You can now directly compare that scan time in the service against what the current system time is. If you hover over that system time, though, a drop-down tray appears. And in that drop-down tray are three icons: access to the online help, access to editing your profile, and logging out of the system. As you can see, N-central's a lot different. It's a lot smoother, it's a lot easier to look at, and it's more logically arranged. It's a huge change from what it was in older versions of N-central. But I think that as you migrate from your version to N-central 8, you're going to find it a lot easier to use, and that the ramp-up time to learn how to use the new user interface is going to be very short. Now that we've reviewed what's new in terms of navigation, let's actually take a look at what's new in terms of features, because this is where I think things get really exciting. The overriding goal for N-central 8 was to give you cross-customer or cross-site management capabilities. So the ability to see all of your devices in an SO level or system level all devices view, filter for the machines that you want, like all of your XP machines with less than 2 gigs of RAM, and then do something to them, run a script, put them into downtime, whatever it is that you need to do. To do that, we've added an all devices view at the system and SO level. And moreover, we've added a new piece of functionality called a filter. If you think about it, when you install an agent on a machine, or you discover a network with a probe, we discover lots of information about that network. Installed applications, license keys, what versions of Windows, who's logged in. We discover tons of data about each machine. That makes N-central this enormous data warehouse that you've been sitting on this whole time. Well, filters are how we let you access that warehouse and pose queries to it. For example, if all I'm looking for are just my machines that happen to have Office 2007 installed, there's a filter for that. I can then just quickly choose those devices and then perform an action against them. I can edit them, delete them, add services or apply a service template. Or in the More Actions dropdown, I can put them into downtime because maybe they need to have maintenance performed. I can update their agents and probes, add a note, run a script, or do an endpoint security scan. As you can see, it's very easy to just use filters to quickly find the devices that you want across your different customers and then perform an action against them. Now, filters are really easy to create. All that you need to do is click on the Create New Filter button, give the filter a name, testing filter for example, and then choose who you want it to be available to. Maybe this is a filter that you want to be available just to you for your own private use, or maybe it's something that you want to share with your coworkers, in which case you'd make it available to everyone. To actually create the filter, all that you need to do is choose a category, like I'm looking for device properties, and then choose an actual property. I'm going to look for devices where the agent is installed, so I'll select where agent installed is equal to true. I've just created a filter. If I want to make it a little more complicated, I can click the Add button, and that'll give me another row that I can fill it again. So maybe I'm going to look for devices where the agent is installed, and from a networking point of view, where the IP address contains 101. Because maybe I'm looking for all the devices that have an agent installed that are on the 101 subnet. I can keep adding criteria like this as much as I want until the filter is as specific and as granular as it needs to be. And I can just link each row together with these simple ands and or radio button. Now, if I want to preview this filter to make sure that I'm actually looking for the right criteria, it's going to work the way that I want it to, I can hit the preview button here. It'll expand a little tray on the right-hand side. In my case, I don't have any devices that match this criteria, but it makes it really easy that while you're creating your filter, you can quickly tell whether or not you're looking for the right properties. Where things get really interesting, and to be honest with you, really, really cool, is that if linking these different statements together with simple ands and ors is not sufficient, you can switch to advanced mode. Switching to advanced mode lets you choose from a couple of pre-canned examples of some complicated, a little more specific expressions that you can use that leverage brackets to further specify how the logic should work. So for example, I can choose A and B, which is very easy, or I can choose A and B or C. Now, if you happen to be looking for a particular way of organizing things that we don't have as an example, you can choose custom expression. You can then go ahead and write whatever expression you want, click generate, and we'll give you a new row for each of the variables that you've defined. So now you can control not only what properties you're looking for, but also what sort of logic to apply when you find those properties. How should the logic be evaluated? This makes filters really easy to use at first because they're very simple, they're very straightforward, but as you maybe need to do something more complicated to find specific machines, something more, just a weird corner case that you need to go off and look after, you can switch to advanced mode and really quickly create whatever kind of filter you want. Now, filters are used in two different ways in N-central. From a viewing point of view, they allow you to filter your view to see the devices that you want. So here in the All Devices view, I can filter to find devices that match a certain filter, like, as I was showing you earlier, devices that have Office 2007 installed. On the Active Issues view, you can use filters as well. A really great use for this, again, is if I'm a backup guy, if that's all that I care about are the backups at my different client sites that are running, well, I can filter the Active Issues view to only show me devices that have certain backup applications installed or that have backup exec monitoring enabled. Dashboards also use filters. So if I click on the servers dashboard, this is my SO level servers dashboard. So it's all of my servers across all my different customers. If I'm looking at this and I've decided that I want to switch views, maybe I want to make something a little bit different, I can just go to the filters dropdown, choose what filters I want to have applied, and the dashboard gets updated right away. So filters are really handy for changing your view and altering your view. Where I think you're really going to start appreciating them even more, though, is how we use them to automate what N-central does for you. In older versions of N-central, we had something called a folder, and you had some limited logic you could put in place. You could say, if a device's name matches this particular text string, or if its class is a server versus a workstation, or if its operating system is Microsoft XP, automatically put the device into a folder. And as soon as the device was associated to the folder, N-central would do things for you automatically. It would install endpoint security, apply patch management, or apply monitoring. The problem is that the three criteria that I mentioned, operating system, device class, and device name, were fairly limited in terms of what you could do with them. you couldn't, for example, find out if a device had Exchange installed and then apply the right Exchange monitoring template. From an automation point of view, older versions of N-central did a really good job of discovering whether it was a workstation or a laptop or a server, and then applying a basic set of monitoring, like CPU and disk and memory and process. But as you would roll out new N-central to new client sites, your technicians would have to spend time, maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours, maybe 4 hours, figuring out which machines were running SQL, what was the domain controller, who was the Exchange server, and then applying the right monitoring template automatically. That takes time, and it's time that it's difficult to bill to your end customer, especially when you've just signed them on. What we've done with N-central 8 is we've taken what were folders and we've really sort of renamed them. We've changed their purpose. They're now called rules, and they're available under configuration and monitoring. And rules are now based on filters. So if we take a look, for example, at the Exchange 2007 CAS role, which is the Outlook Web Access role, what you'll see is that this particular rule is based off of the Exchange 2007 filter. So any device that is found to have Exchange 2007 installed with the CAS role specifically is going to get associated to this rule. And as soon as it's associated to the rule, well, N-central is going to do things for you automatically. It'll apply the right licensing, enable endpoint security, start monitoring for patches, and it'll also apply the right monitoring template. So automatically, it'll apply the Exchange 2007 CAS role template. You can also choose what customer you want to push it out to, because maybe you only want to push it out to some customers. So this alone, this simple change of just taking a rule and making it based off of a filter, is going to save you anywhere from 1 to 4 to 5 hours for every client that you go to roll out now. It's a little bit of time each time you get a new customer, but it's going to save you a lot of time. It's going to make your life a lot easier. It's also going to prevent human error. You can set this up once at the service organization level, and as you add new customers, they're just going to automatically inherit the right set of rules from the SO level. That way, it's not as though one customer is going to be set up differently than the rest, depending on what technician actually did the work. Now, we've also started to use filters, again, talking about automation. We've also started to use filters when you're running scripts or pushing software. We used to call we called them management tasks in older versions of N-central, so pushing out software, Intel Power Control, running scripts. We've renamed them to be something a little more obvious. They're now called scheduled tasks. And now, if you want to run a scheduled task, let's just expand the actions menu here. One of the things that you can do when you go to run a script like this is you can choose how you want to look for devices. Do you want to run this script against devices based on filter, like I'm looking for all my devices that have Office 2007 installed? Do you want to go off of just a specific machine, like maybe I want the Exchange 2K7 box to be the target of this script? Or do I want to do a combination? All devices that have Office 2007 and the Exchange 2K7 box are going to get this script run against them. Filters are in as many places as we could put them because they're so powerful, letting you choose what devices should have an action performed against them. Now, we took a look at what was happening in terms of technical support load. What were some common problems that came up when you were trying to run scripts or push out software in older versions of N-central? When it came to scripts, one of the common call drivers that we saw in technical support was that you would create this really super cool script, you'd run it on your machine, and it would run perfectly. You would then go ahead and upload that script to N-central, run it, you'd be all excited, and it would not run properly. So you'd call our technical support desk and say, hey guys, what's going on? What was going on was that when you run that script yourself, you're running it as a local admin account or a domain admin account. So you have all the right permissions to actually execute whatever that script was going to do. When N-central runs the script for you, the agent is the one that runs it, and it runs it as the local system account. And that local system account doesn't have the same rights and permissions as a domain admin or local admin would. So the script was failing not because we weren't able to execute it, but because the credentials it was being run underneath were incorrect. To solve that problem, what we've done is that now whenever you go to create a new site in N-central, one of the first things that we ask you for are a default set of credentials to be used whenever any new device gets imported into this customer. So you can put in your domain and your username and your password or whatever it happens to be, and then as you deploy a probe or you deploy agents out in the field and the devices check into N-central, they'll automatically get this username and password associated to them. Now, that's excellent if all you have is one domain at this client site. But what about if you have a site that has one domain, and then a box off in the corner that's on its own little workgroup. It's a standalone machine. Well, it's easy. What you can do is just click on the device, go to the Properties tab, and change the credentials right here, just specific to that device. You can go ahead and switch it so that this machine has the right set of credentials to be used whenever a script is run. What about if you have a site that has 2 domains though? Well, again, it's easy enough to set up. When you create your customer, give it one set of credentials, whatever that happens to be. Then, in the All Devices view, filter for the machines that are in that second domain, select them, and then bulk edit them. And when you bulk edit them, you'll be able to change the username and password there, just for those machines that are on the second domain. So we've made it as easy as possible for you to make sure that every device in N-central has a set of credentials that is correct for use when executing a script or pushing out software. When you go to create a script, or to run a script, sorry, you'll be prompted for a few things. You'll be prompted for a name, and then you'll see down here, you'll be prompted what credentials do you want to use. Do you want to use the device's credentials, or do you want to use a custom set of credentials particular to this script or software that you're pushing out? Because the default is to use device credentials, you don't need to create one scripting task per domain or per group of devices. You can just create one scripting task that pushes out whatever the script happens to be, and we will go ahead and figure out what the right credentials are to use for each device individually. When it came to, again, taking a look at what were some reasons around management tasks that people weren't, why weren't they using management tasks as we wanted them to? The other item that came up was that people want to be able to push out large software installers through N-central, so Adobe Photoshop or Microsoft Office, but they weren't doing it in older versions of N-central. Why? Well, it's because those large software installers, sometimes they're 500 megs, sometimes they're a gig, had to be uploaded to your N-central server. And from a bandwidth point of view, it doesn't make any sense for you to upload a huge, 1 gig installer file to N-central and then have every agent out in the field download it separately. That makes no sense. What we did to take care of this was that now at the customer level, underneath administration and then defaults, you can now set up a default network share for this customer site. So somewhere on that LAN, you create a share that every machine can access. You put it into N-central here. You say for this customer, for the Complex Inc. customer, the default network share is going to be //tubby, and the username and password to use when accessing that share is whatever it happens to be. You can set this up per customer, and so what you can do as an MSP is you can drop those large software installers once at each customer site on that share, and then when you want to go push out whatever it happens to be, the latest Java update or some new fresh installer, when you go to create that software distribution task, you go to push out that piece of software. Again, you specify a name like push Office 2010, you specify what credentials to use, and then you specify where do you want to get it from. Do you want to get it from N-central software repository? Because that's still valuable if you have clients that need to get software who are on the road. A sales guy with a laptop, for example, could still get it from N-central if you wanted to. Or do you want to get it from a network share? And if you want to get it from a network share, do you want it as the default share for that customer, or do you want to specify a custom share? All you need to do is specify the name of the file to be obtained by the agent, like Office 2010.msi, and then specify whatever command line parameters you want. In this case, I want to install it quietly, so I'll use the /quiet flag. Finally, choose what devices you want to target. In this case, because I'm pushing out Office 2010, I'm going to target the devices that are running Office 2007. Specify your schedule, and then specify who should get notified whenever the task completes. And what's new in N-central 8 is that you can now specify more than one recipient for these scheduled tasks. You can, in previous versions, you could only specify one person. Now you can specify as many as you want. So as you can see, this is a lot easier to use. This is a much more feature-rich product when it comes to pushing out software or running scripts. We've taken care of the largest call drivers behind us running scripts on your behalf. We've also made it really, really easy for you to push out large software installers through N-central. Now, I mentioned earlier on in the PowerPoint slide that one of the goals that we wanted to accomplish with N-central 8 specifically was to help you with onboarding and maintaining your clients' sites. And really what we think of when we were thinking of that is we want to help you create onboarding plans and recurring maintenance plans. So to do that, we've created a new entity, a new object in N-central called a scheduled task profile. And a scheduled task profile is a collection of management activities. So I have one created right now called proactive maintenance for my servers. And it's composed of 4 different activities. There's a daily endpoint security scan, there's a monthly disk cleanup, and then there's a weekly malware byte scan and a weekly defrag. I can add as many different individual scheduled tasks as I want. Each scheduled task inside of this profile can have whatever schedule it needs, whatever parameters it wants. A scheduled task profile is really sort of an umbrella, a collection of scheduled tasks that together form your proactive maintenance plan for your servers. What makes this really automated, though, is that if I go back to rules, one of the things that you can do now is if I go back to my Exchange 2007 rule again, remember I'm looking for any device that's running Exchange 2007 in this case. I'm going to apply the right monitoring options, but then I'm also going to apply the right scheduled task profile automatically. What this lets me do is that I can create my scheduled task profiles once at the service organization level. So I can create one for Exchange servers, one for SQL servers, one for my Gold customer servers, one for my workstations, whatever I need to do. I can create them once at the service organization level, associate them to rules, and then I'm off to the races. And Central will automatically run the right scripts for me, push the right software, do the right endpoint security scans as new devices get added. I can set it up once and then forget about it. The other use, though, for scheduled task profiles is when it comes to onboarding. I'm sure all of you have a set of actions that you undertake when you onboard a new customer. You delete old user profiles. You go through Active Directory and make sure everything is set up properly. You clean up their DNS. You start maybe some device naming conventions. But you do a set of activities to bring that new customer's network sort of up to your snuff, up to what you consider to be a properly set up network. You can use scheduled task profiles now to help automate that as much as possible. Whatever onboarding activities you perform that can be scripted, you can add into a scheduled task profile. And the secret here is if you want to do an onboarding scheduled task profile, when you add whatever the scheduled task happens to be inside of it, just configure it to run only once. And what will happen is when you run that, I'll just show you here, if you change this just to be once and save it, what happens is that task will only get run when the device is first associated to the rule. So you import a brand new Exchange server, well, all of these one-time tasks will run, but they'll only run the first time that they're associated with the rule. So it's an excellent way to automate your onboarding activities. It moves N-central a lot closer to becoming an automation platform for you as opposed to just a monitoring and management solution. The other really nice thing with N-central 8 is that because we put so much time and energy into really overhauling how we do scheduled tasks, how we handle running scripts and pushing software for you, we also created a new report for you to take a look at how your scheduled tasks are doing. So here at the customer level, if I go to status, there's a new scheduled task summary report. And this report lets me choose how long I want to run the report for, what devices I want to filter, whether I want to use device names, whether I want to choose it by filter. Again, filters are showing up everywhere. By device class, device name, or operating system. I can then choose how I want to sort the results that show up. So do I want to have sort of an overview, a high-level overview of the scheduled tasks? Do I want to include their detailed history of how they ran and what problems occurred? It's up to me. When I run the report, it's a really valuable report. It gives you a list of how many tasks have succeeded, how many failed, what the top devices were that had problems executing tasks for whatever reason, and what devices had the most scheduled tasks run against them. This is a really valuable report because it gives you a really great idea of what's actually happening when you go to run a script. You can use this for internal troubleshooting to help smooth things over. You can use this as a great report to show your end customers, to prove to them all the different activities that you're performing on their behalf. It's really up to you. Those are really some of the bigger new features in N-central 8. A brand new user interface, SO level all devices view, and an SO level dashboards. Filters are brand new as well. Scheduled task profiles are new. Rules are new. This is a massive new release of N-central that really I hope you guys are getting pretty excited over because I think it's probably the most exciting, most feature-packed version of N-central we've ever put out. There's still more though to cover off. One of the things that we did was that we've started discovering additional new asset information. We used to grab the last logged in user. We knew who the last person was that logged into your machine. but we didn't know who the currently logged in user was, or if anybody was currently logged in. We didn't know that. And Central 8, when you install an agent, now grabs who the currently logged in user is. If somebody's logged in, we actually display a little warning icon for you. That way, if you need to remotely control this machine, you know somebody's logged in, so you can make a choice for whether or not you want to disturb them. If nobody's logged in, well, we know who the last person was that's logged in, and we just don't display the little warning triangle for you. We've also just started to discover some valuable new asset information. So here on the Asset tab, we've started gathering some additional hardware data. So we've started gathering what motherboard is installed on the machine, its product, its version number, its serial number. From a networking point of view, we've started gathering a lot of valuable networking information. The default gateway for the machine, the DNS servers that are configured, and the DHCP server that's being used. This is really great if your customer calls you and they are having internet connectivity issues. You can quickly look in N-central to see how they were set up without having to ask them to go, right-click on Control Panel, go to the network connections. Without having to guide them all through that, you can just quickly look in N-central and see how things are set up. We've also started gathering printers. So any printer that the machine is aware of will now be displayed in N-central, and will tell you which one's the default. And again, this is very useful when it comes to troubleshooting a problem. A client calls you and says that they're having trouble printing. Well, you can quickly look here to see what their default printer is. And if it happens to be that they're using the wrong one, you can tell them so really easily. So that's valuable asset data to start collecting and start using. The Mac agent has been updated as well, though. If you go out and you install a version 8.0 of the Mac agent on a Mac laptop or on a workstation, we now start grabbing the make, the model, the serial number of that Mac, the installed RAM, the CPUs that are installed, as well as what its networking information is. So N-central now has a very good idea of all the networking data for all your different clients' machines. That's really handy when it comes to filters. Again, I can create a filter that looks for all devices on a specific subnet, or all devices that are using a specific default gateway or a specific DNS server. If I'm going to be doing maintenance on that DNS server, I can quickly understand which machines will be affected. Now, the other brand new feature in N-central 8 is that we've heard a lot of complaints around Remote Support Manager, and more specifically around the speed of the remote control portion in Remote Support Manager. Remote Support Manager is a product that we've licensed from an outside company. We've integrated it into N-central, but it's not code that we own. For N-central 8, we really wanted to take care of that remote control experience for you. We wanted to make sure that it was as smooth and as fast as possible. So we have entirely rewritten Remote Support Manager in N-central 8. It's a brand new product. It's source code that we own, which means that as you want new features, as you maybe come across small issues, we can fix them as quickly as possible because we're not waiting for an outside company to add those features or to fix those bugs on their own. Anybody currently running N-central 7, when you actually upgrade to N-central 8, you don't need to upgrade RSM if you don't want to, but I'd certainly recommend it. It does require .NET 4, which, if you don't already have it installed, installing .NET 4 will require that your machine be rebooted. So if you want to push out Remote Support Manager, just be aware that it does require .NET 4. We'll install it on your behalf if you want, but just so that you're aware, installing .NET 4 does require a reboot. So it's something to schedule, something to be aware of if you want to push this out. Let's go ahead and log in and take a look. So when you first log into Remote Support Manager, you're given a dashboard, an overview of how the machine's doing. You're given a quick view of its CPU and memory usage. You're given a quick overview of the system's information, so how much RAM is installed, how much is used, how big are its disk drives, and how full are they. What's really handy is you're also given a list of what the top 5 CPU and memory consuming processes are. So what are the processes that are consuming the most resources on this machine? This list updates every few seconds automatically behind the scenes. So if your customer is calling you and explaining that something is causing their machine to run slowly, you can use RSM to really quickly tell what process is causing a problem. We also give you the last 5 events that have been logged in the application, security, or system log. So again, if you need to just understand what the last few issues were that this machine saw, you can quickly do so right here from the dashboard. Now, you can also transfer files. You can access services, like if you want to start or stop services. You can access the registry. You can open the command prompt. And as you'll notice that as I open each of these different functions, they all open up in a different tab at the top of Remote Support Manager's window. We did that on purpose. What we wanted to let you guys do was you could quickly transfer a file. You could go to the command prompt and run that file. You could go back and transfer a second file and then restart a service if you wish to. You can edit the registry, transfer a file again. You can change things on the fly, but you don't need to do one thing, close a screen, and then go back and open a new screen with whatever the next sort of step is in the project that you're working on. This is going to save you guys time. If we take a look here at services, for example, I just want to show you quickly. If you hover over the service, it tells you the service's name, what type it is, the description of it. If you double click on a service, we give you a lot more detail about that service. So where the binary file actually lives, what startup type it is, what status it has, how it's logging in, how it's actually being run, what dependencies it has. A very similar story when we're talking about processes as well, but I want to show this to you because it's very valuable stuff. If we're taking a look at these processes, you can see what I have running here. You can see how many threads it's consuming, how much CPU usage it's using, its priority, its type. If I double click on the process, I get additional detail around how many threads, what's its page fault count, what specific threads it actually has open, what DLLs it's referencing and has opened up, what services it's responsible for running, and what register keys it has in use. Very valuable, very helpful steps and data you can use when you're troubleshooting a specific problem. Another nice feature of RSM is that from a rebooting point of view, we can now let you reboot into safe mode with networking. So if you're troubleshooting a problem, you need to reboot that machine into safe mode with networking for whatever reason. You can do so right from RSM. The other nice piece is that you can chat with the user. And when you chat with the user, we actually open it up for you in a separate window so that you can chat with the user on one screen but continue working on the problem in a second browser window without having to flip back and forth. You can keep your chat open on the side without worrying about what you're doing in RSM. Now the final piece to talk about, of course, I mentioned earlier, the reason we did this was to make the remote control quicker for you. We wanted to make it as quick as possible. So if you're using Firefox to control RSM like I am right now, we're going to use VNC for you. And it is done through either UDP connections or it's done through SSH. But it is very, very fast. And just give it a Control-Delete here. It's as fast as you could make VNC if you were sitting right beside the machine. If I go ahead and log in. Now, if you're using Internet Explorer, though, we won't use VNC. We'll actually use the Terminal Services APIs or the Remote Assistance APIs to give you access to that, either the console session that the user sees or to a new Terminal Services session so that you can start troubleshooting the problem. As I'm sure you guys know, Terminal Services is a blazingly fast remote control connection. It is super stable. It is as real as if you were just in front of the machine yourself. Well, if you're using Internet Explorer to control RSM, we'll leverage those Terminal Services APIs or their Remote Assistance APIs to connect you to that machine to give you the best possible experience. So the custom remote control technology that we were using in the older version of RSM is now gone. It's been replaced with VNC if you're using Firefox or Terminal Services and Remote Assistance APIs from Microsoft if you're using Internet Explorer. The one last thing to talk about that's new in N-central 8 is that we really wanted to introduce mobile support. We know that you guys love your phones, you love Android, you love iPhones, some of you like RIM phones or Windows 7 phones. We wanted to start giving you the ability to manage your N-central server and the incidents that it has detected through your phone. So N-central 8, once you upgraded your server to N-central 8, you'll be able to download a free N-central iPhone app. It'll also work on your iPad. It requires iOS 4.2, but it's free and it's available right now. So if you haven't already gotten it and you're running N-central 8, go out and get it now. We will be coming out with an Android version. It actually is going to go out in beta very, very soon. It performs the same rough functionality. It's going to let you acknowledge notifications, add notes to devices, view the asset information about devices, and view the details of services. So if you want to see why a service has failed, you can do so right in N-central, or right on your iPhone or Android phone. The other just a small little feature that I wanted to show you quickly before we open up the Q&A session is if you're in the old active issues view now and you want to quickly see why a particular service has failed, you can actually hover over it right here. And it'll give you a little pop-up that shows you, out of all the different metrics that service is monitoring for you, which ones are failed, which ones are normal, which ones are warning, so that you can get a quick understanding of what the problem actually is without having to click into the service. You can quickly get a sort of a summary of what's going on. Very handy, and it's going to save you guys time. So with that, I've gone over all the different topics that I wanted to cover off for this webinar. And Central 8's a fantastic new release. It's available right now. It's got great new features, new user interface, cross-customer management capabilities, a brand new version of RSM, and a brand new iPhone application are all waiting for you. Go ahead and upgrade. I'd highly recommend it. I hope you found this webinar useful. I'm really excited to get this in your hands. I think I'd really push for you guys to upgrade as soon as possible. The Incentral 7.x series was good. It was a good solid series, especially 7.1 and 7.2, but Incentral 8 is just heads and tails above what Incentral 7 offered. It's going to change how you use the product. It's going to change how you perceive the product. So I'd highly recommend getting up to it as soon as possible. If you happen to have any questions at all that you want to ask afterwards, I'm happy to have a follow-up a conversation with you. My email address is up on the screen. It's creid, CREID, @n-able.com. And as I said, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. So, thanks a lot, guys. Have a great day, and I look forward to talking to you soon.